everybody. This is Ingrid Vanderbilt. You are on the road with Ivy, coming back to you in segment number 2 from Miami, Florida, speaking with Craig Newmark of Craigslist.org, coming to us today from San Francisco, California. Welcome back to the show, Craig. Great to see you.
Hey, I'm glad to be back.
Thanks so much. Okay, so segment number 2 is one of our favorite segments because this is where we talk about the money behind the business. And in your case, I mean, you've got a huge organization, and when you started Craigslist, we've already addressed that you were really an accidental entrepreneur in starting this venture. So give us an idea of what did you put into Craigslist when you started it? Was it just your time? Did you put money into it? How did you get it going?
Well, in many respects, it was an accident during my 10-year running things. Jim has turned it into something much more methodical. But at the beginning, for the most part, the investment was that of my time. I was paying a little bit in hosting fees, but this was for very cheap accounts at some of the new servers that had popped up in the late 90s. So for the most part, in the first years, it was all, for the first 3 years, it was all my time and a little money. Then things started changing after.
So, okay, did you ever find yourself selling anything yourself on Craigslist to get yourself, to find money to fund the business? Do you have any story like that?
I've never done that. I've sold some things just to sell them, like my last car, but never needed to raise cash to run the business or anything like that.
And what was the car you sold?
Oh, I sold an old Saturn SL2.
Oh, neat. And did you get a good deal for it? Did somebody pay you the price you wanted?
Close enough as I recall. I wasn't pushing too hard, but I did need to get rid of the car, because I had bought an old Prius. And yeah, these days I still drive it. It's the older model, not the more sophisticated current model.
Okay, being environmentally conscious, it sounds like, as well. So let's go back to those early days then when you had started the company. So how were you supporting yourself then when you started Craigslist? Were you still working as an internet sort of consultant, really, in Charles Schwab? What were you doing at the time?
Well, shortly around the time I started Craigslist, that's when I left Schwab to enter into a life of software consulting with a focus on the net. My first serious gig was with Bank of America, helping build home banking. But for the first 3 years or so of Craigslist's existence, I was doing freelance software work. That worked out pretty well for a while. But at the end of '98, I realized that it was time to make Craigslist into a real business.
Okay, so what happened in '98 then? Did you put money together, and if so, how much did you put together? How did you fund the business?
At that point, well, '98, we tried running it on a volunteer basis. That failed. Just turned it into a conventional company in the sense of paperwork and all that in early '99, and that got things going pretty well.
Well, okay, so these days now, have you taken Craigslist through any rounds of funding? And if so, can you give us an idea of what has gone into the company funding-wise to get it to where it is today?
Never had to get any kind of funding. We've been bootstrapped, that is self-financing from the beginning, and that's worked very well for us.
So then, and this is really a question for the next segment, but since we're on this topic, I mean, what advice do you have then for entrepreneurs who, especially there in the Bay Area, and I've lived out there myself and done a lot of business out there and worked with investors out there, and it's real typical for entrepreneurs to start a venture and then just go out and get funding right away. And you didn't do that. So what do you think has been real key to your success on that front in terms of not needing to get that investor financing? How did you do that?
Well, the idea is that sometimes you need financing to be able to develop whatever you're working on. Sometimes you work with VCs because that way you can take advantage of their network in terms of relationships, say, with media or other technology companies. Since I had run the thing as a hobby for 3 years, well, that already had built a critical mass, and since I knew the software and how to do it, such that there didn't need to be a lot of software developed. That meant I didn't need funding for that. It spread word of mouth, which meant we didn't need the kind of relationships that VCs can bring with them.
So really leveraging the volunteer staff, word of mouth, and I'm seeing a picture here up on the left. I believe those are your offices. Is that right?
Yes, those are our current offices. We've outgrown them, and we need to get to, excuse me, we need to get a bigger space, but it won't be real soon.
Well, and I understand, do you have 26 people now? Did I understand that correctly?
There's 26 people. Again, I act as a customer service rep. I am not in management.
Okay, and on the customer service rep initiative, because this is also a great issue for entrepreneurs, I love the fact that you are not in management. And when you talk about customer service, I mean, what do you mean by that? Do you mean people can actually call in and talk to Craig Newmark if they needed to?
Typically, people will email me, and that's craig@craigslist.org. It is not too hard to get my phone number. Somebody did that about an hour ago. But email is the preferred means of communication.
And are you just getting bombarded with requests then these days? I mean, I would think so with the size of company that you are now.
We do get a lot of requests, but the only ones that are tough to deal with are when people are asking me for advice in areas where I'm not qualified to give that advice.
Such as?
How to start any other kind of business, any that's not the one that I know how to do. I do get a lot of that.
Well, and that's actually a really fantastic segue into our next segment where we talk about lessons learned in the future of Craigslist and future for you as well, and advice for entrepreneurs. So, Craig, we really appreciate your time here in segment number 2. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Beauty, Rochelle Ray, and Estilo, and we'll welcome everybody back in segment number 3 with Craig Newmark of Craigslist. Thanks again, Craig. We'll see you in segment number 3.
Sure.